as we speak. I believe we're live right now. It just takes a little bit of time for the Zoom to YouTube page to load as we speak. Okay, there we go. Awesome. So let's send that away, get our slides up, and get this webinar started. Before we present the slides, we actually have to record locally so that we are okay. Let's share my screen. You guys should be able to see my slides right now. Let's maximize so that you can. So funny story, guys. This webinar has been quite. Where's my video on? Okay, there's my video. Now you guys should be able to see me. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I think we should be all set. But funny story, guys, this webinar actually took a little bit of extra effort to put on because as often happens, I'm sure in the webinar world, my laptop just stopped working this morning. So I was working on slides last night, and all of a sudden this morning, I wake up to pull up my slides, add some finishing touches to them, figure out what needed to be added, what needed to be removed, and do a rehearsal. And lo and behold, my laptop wasn't working. So I spent the entire morning gallivanting around town trying to figure out how I could get my laptop fixed. Spending hours on ASUS's god-awful helpline to try and figure out whether the laptop could be fixed. And what ended up happening is I actually had to get a new laptop. And for the first time ever in my time owning a laptop, I am on a Mac, which is going to be interesting. We'll see if I have any issues using it. So bear with me if we do have any technical issues. The interface is completely new to me. As someone who's a lifelong Windows user, makes no sense to me at all. Why would anyone design an operating system like this? Makes absolutely no sense. But we are going, we're going to try anyways, and hopefully it will turn out well. Because I do really enjoy the way the slides came out. And I think that the information we're going to share with you guys today is actually going to help you guys a lot as you guys explore the world of WhatsApp marketing. So welcome everyone to this webinar about how you can increase opt-ins and engagement on your WhatsApp chatbot. The title is pretty self-explanatory, but I think there's a lot of information over here that's relatively new in the world of marketing in general, because WhatsApp hasn't been around for that long as a customer engagement channel. So we have a lot to cover in the next hour or so. So let's get started. As always, we like to start our webinars off with intros. So today, as always, I am your host for this webinar. My name is Arnav, and I am a content marketer over here at TARS. And essentially what that means is that I create content just like this webinar to help people get the most out of their marketing stacks, most out of their customer experience using chatbots and using conversational tech. Now, in terms of who TARS is as a company, we have been around since 2016. And in that time, we've been helping businesses engage with their customers over web and WhatsApp. Now, the nature of businesses is obviously businesses sell to people. They're run by people. They sell to people. And most businesses today, especially, have interactions at scale with their customers. You are constantly interacting with your customers, and the advent of the internet has made that interaction has increased the number of interaction at least 1,000-fold. You're interacting with your customers more often, and you are having longer interactions with them, more meaningful interactions with them, because I am getting some messages over here. Someone says my voice is a little low. Let me try to speak a little more into the mic and see if that works. But I hope my voice is a little better right now. But getting back to who we are at TARS, yep. So we've been around since 2016, helping people interact with their customers over WhatsApp and web. businesses are having all of these interactions with their customers, and we want to be the people to facilitate those interactions, because we think that we have figured out what the ideal way to have those interactions is. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can interact with your customers over the internet, but we think that the best way to do it is using conversations, be that on the web or be it on WhatsApp. And we try to help your business, whether you are trying to achieve marketing outcomes, whether you're trying to achieve customer service outcomes, whether you're trying to engage your existing customer base. We try to help you do that with our web and WhatsApp chatbots. And we know that we can, because in our 4 years of existence, we've helped some of the largest companies across industries achieve just that. We've helped them increase the amount of engagement that they have with their customers, whether that means capturing more leads from their prospective customers, or whether that means automating customer service queries or customer service conversations that would normally be handled by a human being or by a web page. You can see some of these names on the screen right now. I don't need to introduce these names to you guys. I'm sure you've heard of at least one, if not 2, 3, or even maybe all of them before, because they are some of the biggest names in their respective spaces. But that's enough of talking about us. Let's actually move on to what we're talking about in the webinar. I see over here that my infographic over here is cutting off the agenda a little bit, but I think we'll make do. So I've divided the webinar up today into 4 parts. In the first part, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means for your business to be on WhatsApp. Now, if you attended our previous webinar, you'll know that this was actually the title of our previous webinar. We're not going to rehash the entire content of that webinar, but there is one specific concept from that webinar that I want to refresh your memories about, because I think you need to understand what it means to interact with your businesses on WhatsApp in an automated way, to understand what an opt-in is and how opt-ins work, and how you can get more of these opt-ins to increase your engagement on WhatsApp. So first, we're going to discuss what it means for your business to be on WhatsApp, what it means to interact with your customers at scale on WhatsApp. And once we have that established, we're going to go into the meat of today's session. We're going to talk about what an opt-in is. So we're going to all get on the same page about what we're talking about when we're talking about increasing opt-ins. And then we are going to talk about how you can actually get those opt-ins. And then finally, obviously, section 4, we always have this section as the last section, Q&A. If you guys have any questions for me, if you have any questions about the product, if you have any questions about something I've mentioned in a previous webinar, if you have questions or clarifications, or you feel like I said something that was incorrect, that you want corrected in this webinar, that's your opportunity to do so in the Q&A section. That being said, if you do have questions as the webinar is going on, I know that sometimes a question comes up, not necessarily at the end of the session, but while the session is going on. If a question does come up during the session, feel free to drop it in the chat. Feel free to drop it in the Q&A section. I'd be more than happy to answer it as the webinar is progressing. If it makes sense, and if I have the time, if I'm doing well on time, if I have the time, I will most definitely answer your question as we are going along in the session. But let's get started. The first section has to do with what it means for your business to be on WhatsApp. Now, there's a key slide actually that I pulled out from the previous webinar that we did that I want to bring your guys' attention to. So in the previous webinar, we defined WhatsApp marketing as a brand new customer engagement channel where you can achieve 3 outcomes. You can build an audience, you can drive conversations, and then you can re-engage customers in those conversations after the conversations ended. So what this looks like in practice is, I don't know why we have 2 arrows over here. You can ignore the arrow pointing to the customer, but when you're building your audience, what that essentially means is your customer engages with your bot. So your customer lands on your WhatsApp business number, your customer lands on this WhatsApp chatbot that you've set up, and you send it, and the customer sends it a message. So it says, hi, I have a question about this. It does whatever it needs to interact with to start an interaction with your WhatsApp chatbot. Now, that part of the interaction has to do with building an audience over here. Because when customers come to your WhatsApp chatbot, when they come to your WhatsApp business number and they say hi, that customer has now started a conversation, and that conversation is going to be there in their WhatsApp conversations forever. So you are already building that audience. You're essentially creating a list over there of people who you've started conversations with that you can maybe one day re-engage in the future. Now, once the user sends a message to the bot, obviously the interaction doesn't end there. The whole point of chatbots is that they are able to automatically respond to customers and guide customers through conversational flows. And in some cases, they can be extremely complex conversational flows. We have some of our customers helping their stakeholders, helping their customers access their healthcare data and get access to healthcare through WhatsApp chatbots. So the next stage of this interaction is obviously driving conversations, the second point that we had over here. So once the user sends a message, once that connection is established, and once you've started building that audience, once you've added that user to your audience, the next stage is for the chatbot to actually drive the conversation forward and to turn that message that the user sent to it into a meaningful interaction with your business. So the chatbot then responds to the user, and presumably this goes back and forth. So actually this arrow going both ways actually makes sense in this context. So the conversation goes back and forth between the user and the chatbot. And then maybe the user doesn't have time to continue the conversation. Maybe they don't finish the conversation, regardless of what you're trying to achieve. If you're a hospital trying to resolve a user's query about, say, what your visiting hours are, if you are a real estate company telling a customer information about one of your properties that they're interested in, if you are a bank telling your customers about what documents they need to set up a new bank account or to apply for a loan, say that conversation goes cold. Say something happens in the customer's life that takes them away from the conversation and the conversation goes cold and some time passes. Well, now this is where the third part of WhatsApp marketing comes into the picture. You can use WhatsApp campaigns, which is a feature in the TARS product that we've talked about in several previous webinars, to re-engage that user. So your chatbot can send a friendly, non-intrusive, non-pushy, non-promotional message to the customer saying, hey, do you want to pick up where you left off? Or, hey, I have this additional information for you that you might find interesting or you might find useful because based on the conversation we were having before. But in a nutshell, keep this in mind, this three-part form of engagement is WhatsApp marketing. When we're talking about your business being on WhatsApp, when we're talking about getting people to opt in to your WhatsApp conversations, the reason we're doing that is because because of these three stages. We want you to have the ability to build your audience. We want you to have the ability to drive conversations that lead to tangible business outcomes. And we want your business to be able to re-engage users in the future to, again, drive those outcomes that you want. And as we're going forward, opt-ins are actually a key part of this whole process. This whole interaction is facilitated by opt-ins. And it's made possible by this concept of an opt-in. And we'll get into how exactly the opt-in figures into this interaction, but keep this interaction model in mind when you're thinking about what WhatsApp marketing is as we go forward. So now we move on to the next section. So we understand how interaction happens on WhatsApp. We understand what the concept of WhatsApp marketing is. We understand what it means to engage with your customers on WhatsApp. So now we're going to add a complication to this. We have this basic model in our mind, and we are going to add a complication, and we're going to introduce a concept called an opt-in that is key to making all of this happen. Now, essentially what an opt-in is when you ask your customers for consent to receiving your messages over WhatsApp. So you're a business, you want to send messages to your customers over WhatsApp. At multiple stages in this interaction, you are sending them messages. So they said hi to you first, you want to send them messages back to them, you want to re-engage them after some time, you want to send messages to them. An opt-in is basically you getting permission from your users to send them messages in the first place. Now, a key point about opt-ins is that you need to collect an opt-in before you message the customer. So over here in this interaction model, a key part of the interaction model was that the customer messages the chatbot first. It's not that the chatbot messages the customer first. Now, it doesn't have to be like that. You can get an opt-in without the customer messaging the chatbot first, and we'll get into that later. But by and large, the way you can think about it is that you need to get that opt-in, you need to get the user to buy in, to agree to the conversation before you can have that conversation. And that is what an opt-in is. Now, the reason why WhatsApp requires opt-ins, the reason why WhatsApp has incorporated opt-ins as a necessary part of interacting with businesses on WhatsApp is to prevent spam. It is a spam prevention mechanism. WhatsApp has seen what's happened with other channels. They've seen what happened with SMS. They've seen what happened with Facebook Messenger, for example, where actually Facebook Messenger might be a bad example. Facebook Messenger had a bunch of other issues, I think. But they've seen what happens with channels like SMS or even email to an extent, where essentially a lot of businesses out there have misused the channel, or maybe not even misused the channel. The channels have gotten saturated to the point where essentially they've become one-way pipelines for businesses to just throw information, throw promotions at their customers, and no one really uses them anymore. Depending on what market you're in, I think SMS is the best example of this. I think in our previous webinar, we actually showed a screenshot of one of our team members' SMS inboxes, where we showed a promotional message. And if you looked in the top left corner, they had something around 2,000 unread messages. And the reason there are 2,000 unread messages is because people are primed to view their messages, their SMSs, as places where they get OTP messages and where they get promotional messages. And the reason that's the case is because businesses have misused it, or businesses have essentially spammed their customers to the point where customers don't expect to receive any meaningful conversation on their SMS anymore. And WhatsApp wants to prevent that. So the way that they want to prevent that is through opt-ins. And the mechanism at play over here is basically that if users are only receiving messages that they agree to receive, then WhatsApp hopes to avoid this path, avoid going down the SMS path, where you can just buy a list of numbers and spam it with your promotional messages to the point where maybe some of them convert, but most people who get those messages are going to ignore them and say this is just spam. WhatsApp wants to avoid that outcome, and that's why they want opt-ins. They just want WhatsApp to be a place where you only receive messages as a user that you agree to receive. So we understand what an opt-in is. We understand why opt-ins are a thing. Now let's specify a little more what exactly the nature of an opt-in is. So we know at a basic level, an opt-in is basically when you get your user to agree to send you messages. But there have to be a few characteristics to this. There have to be a few conditions to this to ensure that you're properly getting an opt-in. Because, for example, a lot of businesses out there could essentially trick their customers into opting in. Maybe if you bury it in terms and conditions somewhere that you can agree to being reached out to on WhatsApp, that might technically be an opt-in. But in principle, in effect, it's not really an opt-in, because no one really reads terms and conditions, and they don't really know that they're agreeing to be messaged on WhatsApp. So there are three conditions, three criteria that WhatsApp has put in place for what an opt-in is. And those three criteria are what you are seeing on your screen right now. Businesses must clearly state that a person is opting in to receive messages from the business. So they must clearly state that. The business must clearly state its name, so people need to know who they are opting in to receive messages from. You can't say, hey, I agree to receive messages from TARS and then send messages from another company. You can't send messages from, say, Starbucks if the person agreed to receive messages from TARS. And the reason I said Starbucks is because I have a Starbucks cup on my table right now. And finally, businesses must comply with the law. So some regions of the world, looking at Europe, have specific rules around how you can ask for opt-ins and what constitutes an opt-in. So you have to obviously follow those rules as well. So with these three criteria in mind, if you follow all these three criteria when you're asking for an opt-in, when you're getting permission to send messages to your users, then you are getting a proper opt-in and you are essentially acting in good faith. You are engaging with your customers in a way that WhatsApp deems to be proper, to be legal, for lack of a better term. But actually, I don't even think that looking at these criteria is the best way to think about opt-ins. After you leave this webinar, I don't want these 3 criteria to be the thing that you take away from this session, because I think that if you look at the way opt-ins actually work on WhatsApp, how WhatsApp regulates opt-ins, you might have a better sense of what they actually are. And I think to truly understand the role that opt-ins play and the mechanism at play over here that helps WhatsApp prevent spam using opt-ins, and how you can be a good member of the WhatsApp community and actually see positive business outcomes by using opt-ins, is to look at how WhatsApp enforces these rules. Now, you'd think that if WhatsApp has this concept of opt-ins and they want users to only receive messages that they want to receive, that they would automatically block you as a business from sending any messages to your users, or to users who have not agreed to receive messages from you, right? You would think that WhatsApp would do that, but that's not actually the case. WhatsApp doesn't automatically prevent you from sending messages to users who have not agreed to receive messages from you. And the reason they don't do that, I think, in large part, is because you can theoretically we'll get into this later, but you can get an opt-in off of WhatsApp, right? If on a form somewhere you say, I agree to receive messages on WhatsApp from your business, and the person checks that box, there's no way for WhatsApp to know what you included in your web form, right? So WhatsApp can't block you from sending messages to people who have not opted in. So what is WhatsApp's mechanism for enforcing this opt-in rule, where you have to only send messages to people who agree to get messages from you? Well, that's where blocking and reporting and blocking come into the picture. So WhatsApp puts the job of regulating these rules in the hands of the user. So you can send a message to your user, but if the user thinks that that message is spam, or they don't recognize it, they don't want you messaging them, they can report or block you. And if they report or block you, that is where it starts to affect the way you can engage with people. And that's where it starts to affect your business outcomes, because the number of people who report or block your number affects your quality rating, which is essentially, you can think of it as a quality score in the context of PPC ads, but your quality rating essentially tells WhatsApp what the quality of engagement on your business number is. And that in turn affects what tier of messaging limit you are in on WhatsApp. So for the uninitiated, when you have a WhatsApp business number, when you have WhatsApp business API access, so you're able to build a chatbot that automatically converses with people on WhatsApp and then can re-engage them with campaigns, WhatsApp is limiting the number of messages that you can send, limiting the number of customers you can interact with in periods of time. And then they have tiers to decide how many that number is for you. So you start in tier 1, and then you slowly work your way up to tier 3. So in tier 1, you are allowed to send messages to 1,000 unique customers in a rolling 24-hour period. So at any given point in time, in the last 24 hours, if you're in tier 1, you could have only sent messages to 1,000 unique customers. If you get promoted to tier 2, that goes up to 10,000. And then if you get promoted to tier 3, that goes up to 100,000. And this is a question we've gotten in a lot of our other webinars. How do you get promoted through these tiers? So a lot of the businesses who want to use WhatsApp, you might be working at one of them, has customers that are obviously you have more than 1,000 customers, right, who want to interact with you. And you want to interact with those customers on WhatsApp. So how do you interact with more than 1,000 customers? How do you get promoted in these tiers? Well, one factor in deciding whether you get promoted through these tiers is that quality rating I was talking about, and is by proxy the number of people who are reporting or blocking you. So if you're sending messages to a lot of people out there, say you get a list of numbers online, and you guess that, okay, of these 1,000 numbers, at least 800 of them are going to be on WhatsApp. I'm going to send them all a WhatsApp message through WhatsApp campaigns saying, hey, I've got this new product. There's a 20% discount. Buy it right now. Those people didn't agree to be messaged by you. So a lot of them say the vast majority of them decide to report you or report and block you. Now, WhatsApp is going to know that you are a business that sends messages that people don't want. So your quality rating is going to be poor, and the likelihood of you being promoted to another tier is lower. You are in all likelihood not going to be promoted. WhatsApp is going to view you as spam essentially, and you won't be promoted. So you won't meaningfully be able to engage with a lot of customers at scale. Now, on the flip side, if you actually get an opt-in, so say instead of just buying a list of 1,000 numbers online from someone, from a data vendor, instead of doing that, you actually go through the hard work of building your audience on WhatsApp. You actually go through the hard work of bringing people to your WhatsApp chatbot, getting them to say hi to you, getting them to have meaningful conversations with you, or agreeing to be messaged from you, get messages from you through, say, a form. If you go through all of that effort to get that list of 1,000 people and you send it to them and say, only 5 of them now, maybe 5 of them, they agreed to get messages from you, but they forgot that they agreed to get messages from you and they report you as spam. So say now only 5 of them report you as report or block you. Now WhatsApp knows that compared to the company that had, say, 800 people report and block them, that you have a higher quality score and that you are actually sending more meaningful messages that people actually want to receive. And now that is going to tell WhatsApp that you are probably more worthy of being upgraded a tier. So it's going to help you in the long run. And this is the mechanism at play. This is what tells WhatsApp. This is how WhatsApp essentially enforces their opt-in policy. And this is a best practice. You can think of this as a best practice. That's the way it was described to me by one of our customer success managers. And it is a best practice because regardless of what marketing channel you're talking about, whether this is email, whether this is SMS, whether it's push notifications, this is a basic marketing and customer engagement best practice, right? You don't want to spam your customers. Spamming your customers is not something that you want to do or spamming your prospective customers is not something that you want to do because it doesn't really result in any tangible benefit for you. If your calculus is that you're going to send out all of these messages and some people are going to buy your product, well, people who don't agree to get your messages, people hate spam. If they are getting spam from you, probably not going to buy your product. And that's why, as a best practice, you only reach out to, you only engage with, you try to engage with people who you know want to receive your messages, want to receive your emails, want to receive your SMSs. Well, it's the same thing with WhatsApp. If you follow this best practice, you will be rewarded for it in the long run. If you don't follow this best practice, you won't be rewarded. You'll be punished for it in the long run. And actually, I think the best, I was actually thinking about this right before I jumped on this session. The best analogy for this, I think, if you look at other channels, is email. If you spam people with email, with outbound sales pitches that they don't want to receive, then your domain might get flagged by someone at their company and you might be, your domain might be blocked. So your emails will stop going through. Say you want to say we want to sell TARs to a specific company and we send a lot of emails to them. We send emails to everyone who works there and we send it to them every single day. Now they might flag us and our emails won't go through anymore and we get punished because we now have no ability to reach out to them. We have no ability to actually sell our product to them. But if we actually go through the effort of building a relationship with them, learning about them, building a true connection with them, and then send an email to them, then we're less likely to get flagged and we might actually be able to land business with them. Well, it's the same way with WhatsApp and your customers. Don't send customers messages if they don't want to receive them. Send them messages if they do want you to receive them, and both WhatsApp and your customers will reward you for that. And that's essentially what I'm trying to convey in this last slide as well. Don't view opt-ins. I'd say that if there's one thing you need to take away from this webinar is that don't view opt-ins as this rule that you need to follow. It's because WhatsApp does want you to get these opt-ins, but don't get opt-ins just because WhatsApp is telling you to get opt-ins. Get opt-ins because an opt-in is what's going to ensure that you have high quality engagement on WhatsApp, and it's going to actually deliver value to you. If you are engaging with people who want to be engaged with on WhatsApp, then that is what's going to result in the positive results that you want to see out of any customer engagement channel. If you're using WhatsApp to resolve customer service queries and you have conversations where you send information to only the people who want the information that you're sending, then you are actually going to be resolving some of those queries. If you send it to a completely unrelated audience, they are not going to need that information, and you're not going to get the information in the right hands. Those queries are still going to come your way. They're not going to be resolved. On the marketing side, if you're trying to use WhatsApp to drive business, to service people who are already in your funnel, if you're sending spam to people on WhatsApp, in all likelihood, they're not going to buy from you. They're not going to buy from you. They are not going to enjoy doing business with you, and it's going to affect you in the long run. If you send messages to people who do want to receive messages from you, then it's the opposite. You are actually getting messages to them on a channel that they check, that they open. Open rates are very high on WhatsApp. We've seen 70% plus open rates. So they're getting that information from you. They wanted to get that information from you. Now, from their perspective, you are someone who sends them information in a place that they receive it well, and they now have that information about your product, about your services. So they are more likely to buy from you. They actually trust you. They think that you're competent, and they're more likely to buy from you. So the one thing that you should take away before I move on to the next section from this webinar is that WhatsApp marketing, or sorry, WhatsApp opt-ins, where's my head? WhatsApp opt-ins are best practice that you should be following because you want to follow it, and because it is what's going to be best for your business, not because it's something that WhatsApp is telling you to follow or Facebook is telling you to follow, even though they are. So take that, make that be the main takeaway. Now let's get into the actual nitty-gritty of how you get these opt-ins from people. And before I get into the specific channels, I'm going to talk about, I think, 6 ways you can get opt-ins from people and get them to actually start conversations with you on WhatsApp, which you can then use to re-engage them. Before we talk about that, there's one really quick concept that you need to keep in mind as we go forward. Every WhatsApp number, every WhatsApp business number out there has a WhatsApp link. This should actually say WhatsApp business number up here, so keep that in mind. Has a link. So the link is usually in this format over here. If you put this in your URL, it'll automatically redirect you in your URL bar in your browser. It'll automatically redirect you to the number that you replace in the place of this 1xxxxx over here. If you replace this part of the URL with your WhatsApp business number, that link can go wherever you put any other link. So you already have landing pages out there that you are directing people through your existing channels. Maybe you run SMS campaigns, maybe you run email campaigns, maybe you run PPC campaigns. You're already directing people to your landing pages. Well, just change the URL to your WhatsApp URL, and a lot of those channels, most of those channels, will still work. So if you want to direct people to your WhatsApp chatbot where they can start a conversation, so you can get that agreement from their end to start that conversation instead of you sending it to them, then having this link is going to be the best way to do it, because you already know how to get links in front of people. You already know how to get people to click on links. But that being said, let's specify how you can get those opt-ins using mostly links like this. And as I mentioned, there are six methods that we're going to talk about today. Let's see how I'm doing on time really quick. We have about 26 minutes left. I'm actually going a little slower than usual today. I'm a little out of practice, but we can go through this quickly and then get to the Q&A section as quickly as possible. So there are 6 methods that we are going to talk about today. The first one is to use a WhatsApp widget. And maybe if I have time at the end, I'll show you an example of what this WhatsApp widget looks like. But we've all been to a website before that has a widget in the bottom right corner. You can click on that widget and it starts a conversation with a live chat or with a chatbot. Well, you can similarly make a widget that redirects you to a WhatsApp conversation. So you have your website, you have a widget in the bottom right corner. You have a widget in the bottom right corner. And if they click on that widget, they can be dropped into your conversation. Now, once they're dropped into your conversation, that's obviously alone, not an opt-in. So I see we have a question over here. If someone's clicked on the link, you want them to agree to be in that conversation. And I think the The easiest way to meet all of the criteria that we were talking about is to get the user to say hi and to engage with the chatbot. Because at that point, if they're on the WhatsApp conversation, they can see what the name of the business is at the top. So they clearly know who they're going to start a conversation with. And there is a basic presumption that if they say hi to someone on WhatsApp, it is an inherently conversational platform, that they will get a response from it. So them saying hi over there, them initiating the conversation is a good way to get them to opt into that conversation. I highly doubt, considering the mechanism at play where people will report or block you, I highly doubt that if someone comes to your WhatsApp business number, says hi, and then you say, hi, how can I help you in response, that they're going to report you for that. So WhatsApp is not going to punish you for that. WhatsApp is in all likelihood not going to punish you for that, unless your customers make absolutely no sense and they're not logical people. If someone clicks on your widget, they drop into the conversation, they say hi, they start that conversation, in all likelihood, in their mind, they are going to be opted in, and they're not going to report you, which is not going to result in your, it's not going to result in your being reported, and it's not going to result in you being punished by WhatsApp using that tier system, or not punished by WhatsApp, but I guess in a sense, it's in a sense punished by WhatsApp. So the first method is this WhatsApp chatbot widget. They click on the widget, it redirects them to WhatsApp. They can start the conversation there. Once they start the conversation, you can assume that they wanted to start the conversation. It takes a lot, I think, to say hi, hit enter by accident. So that's the first method you can use to bring people to your WhatsApp number. The second is using Facebook ads. So this is I think the most novel way to bring people to your WhatsApp business number, because WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, and because Facebook has this massive ad business that they run on Facebook and Instagram. They actually have set it up so that you can make the CTA in your Facebook ads a WhatsApp business number. And we've actually done a webinar on this in the past. If one of my colleagues could share that in the chat over here, that would be great. We've done a webinar on this in the past, but essentially you can set it up so that while people are scrolling through their Facebook, while people are scrolling through their Instagram, if they see an ad, instead of clicking on that ad and landing on a traditional landing page, they can land inside a WhatsApp business number conversation. That's what you're seeing in this little series of screenshots over here. But once they land in that conversation, they can obviously report or block you. But if they clicked on that ad, presumably they're interested in your products, and presumably they will start that conversation with you, get a response from you, and hopefully continue that conversation to completion. And if not, you can probably re-engage them without them reporting you, because they were clearly interested in talking to your business in the first place. Think about this from a principle standpoint. Think about this from a principle standpoint. Or think about it as a human being. Think about your chatbot as a human being, right? If someone sends you a message saying, hey, I'm interested in this product that you're selling, and then you have a little bit of a conversation with them, and then maybe they go cold after some time, it's well within, I think, reason for most people for you to message them in the future and say, hey, are you still interested in this? Because if so, let's continue the conversation. So Facebook ads are the second way to get that opt-in. You can get people to send you a message through these Facebook ads with the WhatsApp business number as CTA. And once they're in that conversation, once they've started that conversation, that's essentially permission for you to message them back. In fact, it's probably encouragement for you to message them back because they've sent you that message. So click on the ad, send you a message, land in the WhatsApp business number, send you a message, you have a conversation with them, and maybe in the future you re-engage them through campaigns if they go cold. That's the second method. The third method is through QR codes. And QR codes, the interesting thing about QR codes is that this turns offline traffic into online into online sales. This can be used to turn offline traffic into online sales. So say you have actual physical stores, say you have physical materials out there that people are viewing. Say you have a big physical presence, and doing business with your customers involves them coming in person to your store, to your office. If you have a WhatsApp business, if you have a WhatsApp business number, if you have a WhatsApp business API, WhatsApp chatbot set up, like I said at the beginning of the section, you can have a link to that number. And if you attach that link to a QR code, which is extremely easy these days, you can put that QR code up on your promotional material. You can put it up in your physical spaces. You can even put it up, I guess, in emails and things like that to get people to access it. But presumably, again, if someone is going through the effort of scanning that QR code, landing on the chatbot, and then actually sending you a message in that chatbot to say hi, or hi, I'm interested in this, or hi, can you help me in this, that it's pretty reasonable to assume that they want you to message them back. So again, this is the third way you can get opt-ins from your customers. And this is obviously gives you that the physical aspect, the offline aspect of getting opt-ins. You can get opt-ins in an offline way. You can convert offline traffic into online traffic on your WhatsApp chatbot. And we're going to see a very similar trend in the last couple of ones over here. With email campaigns, very similar. In promotional emails that you send to people, I couldn't find a good screenshot for this, but in promotional emails that you send to people, presumably you have links to your other engagement channels, right? You have links to maybe follow you on Facebook, join your Facebook community, follow you on Instagram, follow you on Twitter. You could also have a link, because you obviously have a link to your WhatsApp business number, to say, message me on WhatsApp, message us on WhatsApp. And if someone clicks message us on WhatsApp and then messages you on WhatsApp, again, that's an opt-in, because they have gone through that effort of clicking messages on WhatsApp and then messaged you on WhatsApp, which presumably means that they want you to message them back and won't report you if you message them back. So emails are another option over here. SMS is very similar. You already run SMS campaigns to get links in front of people. Those links are taking people to landing pages. You can instead say, hey, we're available on WhatsApp. Use this link to opt in to our conversation. Use this link to chat with us, to message us on WhatsApp. They click on that link, say hi to you. They start that conversation. That there is an opt-in, unless that there is an opt-in. You've gotten them to click on a link and send you a message and start a conversation with the expectation of you responding to them. So that's the fifth way that you can get an opt-in from your customers. Now, this last method of getting an opt-in is sort of the exception. It's the outlier to all of these, because in all of these first 5 ways of getting opt-ins, you are getting people to land on the conversation and say hi to you. Where if they've landed on the conversation and said hi to you, you are putting the burden on them to start the conversation. And if they start the conversation, that's getting the opt-in. That's getting the opt-in and then turning that opt-in directly on the spot using your chatbot by responding to that message, turning that opt-in on the spot in real time into a meaningful conversation, right? This last method is slightly different. So presumably you have forms across your web pages. You have a landing page with a lead capture form. You have your websites where you have contact us forms. You maybe have sign up pages depending on what your product is. In all of those forms, in most forms today, actually, come to think of it, there's always a checkbox that says, do you agree to being sent updates over email? Do you agree to being sent promotional text messages? Maybe not promotional text messages. Do you agree to hear news? When I was setting up this laptop, for example, there were several checkboxes saying, do you want to be notified about Apple events, Apple updates, Apple news? And I could check that, right? And if I checked that, they'd send me emails. They'd send me, I don't think Apple would send me text messages, but they'd send me emails about those events, about that new information. Well, you can do a similar thing with WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is essentially a new customer engagement channel, just like phone is, just like SMS, just like email. You can have that additional form field over there saying, I agree to be sent additional information over WhatsApp using the number that I've provided in this form. And if they check that, you can view that as an opt-in, and then you can send them a message. And hopefully they won't forget that they opted in to that WhatsApp SMS. This is why I think this is, if at all, the most dicey of these options. Hopefully they won't forget that they checked that box. But if they have not forgotten that they've checked that box, presumably they'll be like, oh yeah, I opted in. I checked that box. So I told these people that they could message me and they won't report or block you. But say that you bury this in like a massive form where people skip over it. Again, it gets back to that principle. They don't realize that they've checked the box and they've agreed to receive messages on WhatsApp. And then you send them a message. That's, I mean, you're essentially being punished for trying to trick them into opting in. But if you make it clear to them that they're opting in to receive messages on WhatsApp, if it's clear that that's what they're checking the box to do, and then they receive a message, in all likelihood, they won't, in our experience, they won't report you, they won't block you, and then you won't get punished using the tier system to for not getting that opt-in. And that, I think, brings us full circle to the end of the main content of this webinar. So at this point, what you should understand, I think, is, first of all, what it means to engage with your customers on WhatsApp. Quick recap of that. You get them to message you, you build your audience on WhatsApp, you drive meaningful conversations once they've messaged you, and then you can re-engage them in the future in case those conversations go cold. A key part of this whole form of interaction is that they message you first, or they agree to be messaged by you first. If they don't do that, then you are essentially spamming them. And if you're spamming them, WhatsApp is not going to let you send many messages on WhatsApp. You're going to be either bumped down a tier, or you're not going to be promoted up in that tier system. And you will be forever consigned to low engagement on WhatsApp, unless you obviously reform your ways and then actually deliver value to people and can demonstrate that change. And then the ways that you get that opt-in, the ways that you get people to land on your conversation, say hi, start that conversation, agree to be messaged by you, is through these 6 methods over here. There obviously could be more because, again, as I mentioned, you can get a link to any WhatsApp business number, but these are 6 popular methods that we've seen to get people to land on your conversation, say hi, and essentially opt in to your chat. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have now. We did have a message over here from an anonymous attendee saying, can we consider the customers who have clicked on a WhatsApp link as an opt-in and save it to our database? Again, think about it in principle. WhatsApp is obviously not going to stop you from sending a message to those people, but those people can report or block you, right? So do you think that that person has agreed to be messaged by you? And if you do, then you can message them. And if you were right about that prediction, then that person's not going to report or block you and it won't be an issue. But if you were wrong about that prediction and they actually did not feel like they opted in and they do report or block you, then that's obviously going to be an issue for you. I'd say from a common sense perspective, if someone clicks on a link to land into your WhatsApp chat, your WhatsApp business number chat with your chatbot, and they don't send a message to the business, they just see the chat and then they close out of it. In all likelihood, they did not, they reach there and then they had second thoughts. But if they land on your chat, they say hi, they get a response from your chatbot, I'd say that that's an opt-in over there because they have made the initial step to start the conversation. And on a conversational platform like WhatsApp, I highly doubt there are people out there who want to land on a chatbot, say hi, and then not expect a response and then get angry when they get a response. So I'd view it in those terms. I'd view it from put yourself in the shoes of the customer. And when you put yourself in the shoes of the customer, just apply basic common sense to figure out whether they're agreeing to be messaged or not. Do we have any more questions over here? None so far. Just means I did a good job explaining all these concepts to you guys. My colleague Abhilash is sharing some links with you guys that you can use to access more of our webinars, to book demos with us. Please do use those links. Please check out those resources. I think they will help you guys out. If you find this webinar interesting, you'll certainly find the webinars that he's sending in the chat interesting as well. So do check those links out. I'm going to give this maybe a minute longer if we don't have any more questions, if we don't have any more messages, that's fine. We can end the webinar a little early and we can all carry on with our days. All right, let's see. Oh man, I'm still learning how to use a Mac. I don't know, I clicked on the clock over there and then all of this stuff showed up. I don't even know where this, I don't know why they think I'm interested in what the time in Paris or Sydney is. I don't think I'll ever go there, but I actually know I will probably go there, but I'm not going there anytime soon. So I don't know why they would think I'd be interested in that. All right, the clock has ticked over 12:20 for me. So 150 IST. which is about 10 minutes before we expected to end the webinar. But if you guys don't have any more questions for us, I think we can end the session over here. A quick reminder to everyone who attended this: we will send a recording of this webinar to you guys after the webinar is done. So Zoom takes a little bit to process the recording, but once the recording is processed, we'll upload it to our site and we'll send you a link to that recording so that you guys can access it, watch replays, share with your friends, share with your families. Also, yes, as Abhilash is mentioning in the chat right now, you can also access the recording right away on YouTube. We live streamed this entire session on YouTube. So you can go onto YouTube, go onto our channel, and then after the webinar is done, after I hit stop, leave the session or end the session over here in Zoom, it'll process on YouTube and be up on our channel for you guys to check out. We'll also send you the slide deck, the entire slide deck that you saw today. We'll share that with you guys as well if you want to share it with anyone or if you want to review it yourself after. But thank you guys for joining. As always, it was a pleasure hosting this event for you guys. I hope you guys found it useful. And if you did, please keep a lookout for our future events. We're always hosting events like this, especially about WhatsApp. So if you're interested in WhatsApp chatbots, check our website out. I think we have a couple more events around WhatsApp marketing scheduled. So sign up for those or check out our old recordings as well. But I'll leave it at that.